Good evening, parents, carers, and Year 10 and Year 9, beg your pardon, Year 11 students, and welcome to the GCSE / BTEC, I know, success evening. Thank you very much for giving up some time this evening for what I know will be very productive and very useful in terms of you making the most of the last year that you have in school for those who are in Year 11, and for those in Year 10, making as much progress and getting as much work done this year as possible in preparation for the final GCSE years next year. I want to start off by going through a slide that you may have seen me use before, for those who saw my earlier production in September. I'm going to keep on coming back to this again and again and again because I believe it's so important. As always, we see the success at the end product. Far too often, too many of us don't realize all the hard work, the sacrifices, the dedication, the failure, more important than anything else, that has taken place prior to that success. And I want you to have those conversations with your children that, success isn't something that comes immediately. It's not something that's short term. It's something that takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication. There are going to be many barriers in the way, but if they keep on going, if they keep on striving, if they are persistent in their approach to whatever it is that they are doing, then obviously that success will come. And the old adage or phrase I use with my students is, the only place you will find success before work is in the dictionary. By now you should be familiar with what the Pride score is, but I want to just go back over it again because over the next few months and the year in particular for Year 11 and Year 10 as well, I might add, the Pride score is going to start appearing on the reports that they're going to get for the end of term. Now, the end of term report Pride score consists of your child's attendance to school, their punctuality to lessons, punctuality to school, their Pride points, and more importantly, their attitude to learning. Now, these 5 aspects come together to give your child a Pride score for each term. Maybe asking, why is the Pride score significant? What's so important about it? Well, over the last 3 years, what we've seen is a very, very strong and positive correlation where there's a high Pride score and a very negative correlation, a negative correlation in regards to a low Pride score. So the higher your child Pride score, the more likely they are to make positive progress, the more likely they are to attain higher grades, and conversely, the lower the Pride score, the less likely they are to make positive progress. In fact, the more likely they are to make negative progress, and the less likely they are to attain those higher grades. Your child would have come home today, if your child's in Year 11, with a report card, and on that report card would have been an attitude to learning grade today. I would like you to have a conversation with them in regards to their attitude to learning. If it's not at least an equal, then as far as I'm concerned, they need to have a conversation with their teachers. What do I need to do to become at least an equal, if not positive, over the next 7 to 8 weeks in preparation for the November mocks? Because we need to ensure that progress for your child is being made in that time. But to do so, they need to know what the requirements are, what might they need to work on, where are they not currently putting in the effort, where are the areas of concern that could have possibly caused that negative attitude to learning grade. Just like progress, attainment, again, very, very clear correlation between the higher the Pride score and the higher the average grade. Mentioned today about the reports already, as well as your child's attitude to learning, you should also see on the report there is a target grade. I know I've got it in bold, I know I've got it on the line, I'm not necessarily shouting, but we've had several responses already from parents about these being a predicted grade. These are not a predicted grade at all. They are the grade that your child is targeted to get in those particular subjects. Now, it doesn't mean that that is the grade that they should only aim at. I always say, try and beat your target grade, aim higher, don't just settle for whatever the target grade is, always try and surpass it. And again, speak with your teachers, with their teachers, you know, what are the requirements for them to continue making the progress that they can make, for them to be able to achieve their target grade and beat it. Attendance. Mr. Rogers, the assistant head teacher in charge of Key Stage 4, did some further analysis over the last week for attendance and linking that attendance to the average attainment and then the progress of students. I've spoken to you about attendance already, and it's something that I strongly believe in. If students aren't here, and obviously it's detrimental to their studies, it's detrimental towards their futures. So the more often they're in school, the more likely it is that they're going to get higher grades or attain higher grades, and the more likely it is that they're going to make positive progress, which is obviously what we want. And finally, from me, before I hand over to Ms. Sumner, there are pre-mocks coming up. We wrote to you, the Year 11 parents, that this is, and these pre-mocks are just for Year 11s. In July, pre-mocks start next week. The difference between the letter in July and the one I sent to you a few weeks ago in September is that the pre-mocks are now for all subjects, all of their GCSE subjects, rather than just the core subjects. Are they important? They're extremely important. Your child has not got a lot of evidence for their grades for GCSEs and or BTEC from Year 10 because of the lockdown that we underwent. So we need to have this evidence. We don't know if in the future we have to undergo another lockdown or if we're not going to sit exams, because things are just so up in the air right now. So we need to have as much evidence as possible in case we have to do another set of CAGs. And what's their relevance? Well, there's 2 points. I've mentioned one already. Secondly, if your child is going to start applying to colleges and sixth form in the next few weeks, one of the things they ask for are predicted grades. From the pre-mocks next week, your child will be issued with an early predicted grade that they can then use in their applications for their sixth form and college applications. We don't have any at present because they didn't really undergo a rigorous end of Year 10 mock exams, so we didn't choose to do any because we didn't think it would be worthwhile. But from these pre-mock exams coming up, there will be some. There will be a further set of predicted grades from the November mocks, and what your child wants to see, and yourself obviously, is that progress between the pre-mocks and the mock exams, where not only are their current attainment grades improving, but also their predicted grades are also improving, so that they're able to apply more for those college and sixth form places, which they should start getting offers for in January. At this point, I'm going to introduce Ms. Sumner, who will be presenting the presentation on the revision techniques.
Hello, nice to see everybody. It's been a long time since obviously I've met with parents. The purpose of my presentation is just to talk more generally about how parents can support their child at home and ensure obviously success. Okay, I get asked all the time how you can help your child achieve the best possible grades. Okay, at this moment in time, I would like it to be more of an interactive exercise with parents. So could I just ask you to all go and get a pen and paper, just a scrap pen and paper. I'll just give you 30 seconds just to quickly do that if you can find one. Okay, now obviously children need to know how to actually revise. They're going to be taught how to do this by their tutors, by their teachers, by myself in assembly. Okay, but it's also good if parents can also reinforce this at home. Okay, this is one topic out of science. It's just one very, very small part of what your child will need to revise. Okay, obviously this is about photosynthesis. If you can just take a little bit of time and just quickly read through this, I will be coming back to you, but it's important if you just take a moment just to read through that information. Okay, now obviously that was a lot of information for anybody to take on board. Okay, obviously you as adults can remember a lot more than a child's brain at this time. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, and what I'm going to talk about, is how you can help remember, how you can support your child in remembering all of that information. Okay, now what I will ask now is for you to draw a very simple diagram. It doesn't have to be a Picasso, okay? Just a simple little diagram of a plant. Got a little example up there for you of a sunflower. Okay, in a moment we're going to go back to that original slide with all that information on it, and all I need you to do is just to pull out the key pieces of information that you think are important about photosynthesis and add them to your little diagram, because essentially what we are making are flashcards. Okay, this is the information. Again, I'm just going to give you a moment. If you can just pull out those key pieces of information and add them to your diagram. Okay, what you should have on your diagram are more or less all the words that are in bold. Okay, because from reading that information, all that your child will need is then keywords to help them remember what photosynthesis is and what it does. What you can then do and support your child, you can take the flashcard and then ask them questions about those keywords. They should then be able to recall the information from the big sheet with all of those different words highlighted, and they should be able to give you a definition and explain what photosynthesis is. Just by doing this over and over again will mean that children get into good habits of being able to read information, pull out those key pieces of information, and then obviously retain that in their long-term memories. There are a number of different ways that children can revise. Okay, flashcards using pictures like you've just done, but there's other ways. Children revise differently, so you can use spider diagrams. It works very similar to the pictures in that key pieces of information and keywords are put within that central topic of information. Again, mind maps, all this has been shared with students already, but again, this can be included for a whole topic. For the example, the skeletal system, all this information can be put on one flashcard and it is just used to spark and recall information. You would have already been sent an exam booklet for planning for success. Okay, this is also found on the school website, but what it does, it lists all the topics that your child will need for every single exam. If you have any questions about this, any questions about the topics that's covered, all you must do is email the head of department. If there is a general question, however, please feel free to email me and I will always get back to you, hopefully on the same day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Sumner. For all Year 10 parents, I can confirm that there will be a Year 10 Planning for Success exam booklet also coming out. So at this point, I would like to pass over to Miss Begum, who will be presenting English.
Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Director of English, and today I'm going to go through some of the key ideas and topics in English and key bits of information that you need to know. First of all, I wanted to share the English vision. We've shared this with all students and we want to share it with parents as well. In English, we want students and staff to be excellent in everything we do, to assist all students to acquire knowledge, skills and cultural capital through an engaging, accessible, diverse and appropriately challenging curriculum. We've worked really hard in making sure that our curriculum is diverse and challenging. It's to have high ambitions and expectations for all, guiding our students to make or exceed progress, including age-related progress and celebrate success. It is to empower the students to overcome barriers, to become proud, confident readers and successfully articulate themselves in both the written and oral form. It's to enable students to be involved, determined and pursue their ambitions and develop leadership skills for life beyond the classroom. But obviously, in order to go beyond the classroom, we do need to focus on the next 2 years. So for year 10, it's year 10 and 11, and year 11s, it's this year. So I just wanted to share with you all the Key Stage 4 team so that there are teachers who you can be directed to. So there's the year 11 team on your screen and the year 10 team. Alternatively, you can ask any questions, etc., direct to myself or to Ms. Turstine, who's our Key Stage 4 lead. But I will share with you the key bits of information for this year. The first thing is that we are using the exam board AQA, and what I'm going to explain to you about is the 2 GCSEs, language and literature. Now, there are changes for 2021, so current year 11s, there are changes involved, and you'll see on your screen that I've separated it into the language change and the literature change. Now, the language change, the papers themselves are unchanged. However, the non-examined assessed spoken endorsement, so where they do a speech in the classroom, that has changed. We no longer need to record it. They still have to do it in the classroom, but it no longer needs to be recorded. There are, however, heavier changes in literature, which I will be going through in more detail. Now, first of all, with the language, as you can see on your screen, I've tried to break it down so it's easier to understand. Language for both year 10 and 11 involve 2 exam papers. Paper 1, which is worth 50% of their exam, that in itself is broken down into 2 sections. Section A, which is reading of 1 unseen literature text, and section B, which is a creative writing piece. That paper on its own is takes 1 hour 45 minutes. You then have paper 2, which follows the exact same format in that it's 50% of the GCSE. It's 80 marks. There's a half a section on reading. However, there are 2 texts in that one. And then there's the writing section, which is actually a transactional piece. So they write an informative piece. Again, that exam is 1 hour 45. So for both year 10 and 11, that is what's expected. What you can see on your screen right now is a further breakdown of the 2 papers for you to pursue at your own convenience when you get this slide. However, it is important to understand that this is unchanged. There are no changes for the current year 11s or the year 10s. Then I've just given an extra bit of information for students who are very familiar with this. They see this in class all the time, a breakdown of the skills and the questions that those skills are relevant to for language. For literature, however, there are changes. So the current screen is just for year 11 parents and students, current year 11s. There is a change in literature. As you would have heard in the news, this exam board, the one that we've chosen, AQA, have given us a choice to take away 1 unit, and we have chosen to drop the poetry unit because for our year 11s, that was the only unit that we had not covered before school closures. So our students would have been at a disadvantage if we continued with that. So what you'll see on the screen is paper 1, which is going to be worth 46% of the literature GCSE. And in paper 1, students will have a Christmas Carol extract, and they will have to do 1 extended response on that. The second paper in paper 1 is the modern text paper, which is an inspector calls. This exam does not have an extract, just like we've never had an extract in an inspector calls, but that will still be 30 marks. That total of that exam paper is 50 minutes each. The AQA exam board have told us that while they sit paper 1 on the same day, they sit both papers, paper 1B and paper 1C together, they will be given a short break before each paper. So they do 50 minutes of A Christmas Carol. They will be given a break while those papers are collected in the hall, and then the second paper will be handed out to them. Then you have paper 2, which will be done on a different day. That is 54%. And in that paper, they will have section A, Shakespeare, and this is compulsory. All students have to do a Shakespeare exam. However, our text is Macbeth, and that's 34 marks. And then the second half of that paper, section B, is the unseen poetry. All students across the country have to still take part in unseen poetry. There will be 2 questions. There'll be 1 question on one single unseen poem, and then the second question will be comparing that first unseen poem to another one. Those together are worth 28 marks. Again, that exam is shorter than usual. It will be 1 hour 45 minutes. These changes currently affect only our year 11s. I need to reiterate that. There are no plans for the current year 10s to have a different GCSE structure. So I've given a bit more detail for year 11 parents there about the breakdown of the marks, where the SPAG comes in. It's really important to understand that spelling, punctuation and grammar is going to only be assessed in paper 2 and not paper 1, which is again slightly different to previous years. However, for current year 10s, they are working towards normal GCSE. So what you've got on the screen is paper 1, which is worth 40 marks. And in paper 1, they study Shakespeare's Macbeth, and they will do 1 extended response on that. And then they will do section B on the same paper, which is on A Christmas Carol. And again, it's just 1 extended response on that. With both of those texts, they will be given an extract, and they respond based on the extract and their knowledge of the whole play or novel. That exam will be 1 hour 45 minutes. Their paper 2 is worth 60% of the marks and 60% of the GCSE, and has 96 marks and has 3 sections. They will study section A and inspector calls, where they will be given 2 question choices, no extracts. Section B is poetry, where they are currently already studying the cluster of power and conflict poems, and they have to compare 1 poem which is shown to 1 poem from their memory. And section B is the unseen poetry section, where they answer 1 question on unseen poem and 1 question comparing that poem to another unseen poem. And that exam will be 2 hours 15 minutes. Again, I've shared further detail for the year 10 parents for you, and currently as it stands, this is how their exam in 2022 will look. Again, I've shared some more assessment objectives with you, should you be interested to pursue at your own leisure. Now, the year 11 curriculum at the moment, what I'm sharing with you on the screen is what they will study throughout this year for year 11s. In year 11 timetabled at the moment, they have 2 language lessons a week, 2 doubles, and which is 1 double, sorry, and they have 3 literature lessons in the week. After they study each unit, they complete a common assessment. That common assessment is like an end of unit assessment, which is done in timed conditions in class, and we use that data to track their performance as evidence. So all year 11s are doing the pre-mocks, which count towards those common assessments. As you can see, we've tracked across for the current year 11s all the way to summer 1 to their exams. Then for year 10, we have the same. However, year 10 lessons are slightly different. Students have 4 lessons a week in which they study the main scheme of work, and then 1 lesson a week for interleaving of revision. So that 1 lesson is where they revise previously studied units or are introduced to a new unit, which is then revised again later on in the year. Just like year 11s, they also complete a common assessment after every single main unit. So currently year 10s will have next week a language paper 1 common assessment. Now, if you'd like any further help from the AQA exam board, I've given you the link to go to. All students and parents can access materials, can see the spec for yourself and get further information. Now, in terms of what students should and have to do, we would like in English for them to continually come to us fully equipped. They take their books home every day. We expect them to bring them back. They need to actively participate in lessons, complete the homework set, catch up on any work missed. By that, I don't mean from when schools were closed. I mean, if they've missed a day or have had absence, independently revise for exams and seek out help if necessary. Now, in terms of homework in English, all English teachers will set weekly homework on Show My Homework. They will provide clear instructions, so this will come up on your screen, provide clear instructions and support for students, provide feedback in line with our school and department policy, and provide all weekly lessons on Friday for students to review and add to. Now that's really, really important. Every Friday, all of the English teachers upload that week's worth of lessons, all the resources, the PowerPoints, pictures of what students have done in class. We sometimes take pictures of classwork and upload it on for students to then review over the weekend, over the next few days, and add to their work in their books. That's really important for any students who have an absence of a couple of days because they can catch up on their work as well. Now, there is a timetable, so year 10s have homework set on Tuesdays, and year 11s have homework set on Wednesdays. So that's really important that students are aware of that and follow that. In terms of how you can support your child, what we'd like is to keep up with their attendance, especially because English, we've got lots of doubles. So if they miss one day, they miss 2 or potentially up to 2 hours of work. We'd like your support with your child with their homework revision, having them get access to some practice papers. We will provide lots of practice papers, but any extra that they can do is really good. Encourage them to be proactive and do their best. And we recommend at least 1 hour a day of revision of English. You have to remember English is 2 GCSEs, so that 1 hour a day is quite moderate in comparison to the fact that it's 2 GCSEs. Please contact the class teacher at first point if you have any concerns or need further support with supporting your child. In terms of what we could do to help, we do have intervention that will be taking place, pre-selected, so your child will know if they've been offered that intervention, and there will also coming up be tuition offer help as well. All classwork is uploaded to Show My Homework for students to revisit and complete if absent. The homework is always set. We will be sending out more information about purchasing revision books through the school, like some of our current year 11s have had that in year 10 where they purchase revision books through parent pay. That will be coming back again. And we also are really pushing on feedback to move forward. So the feedback that your year 11s will get from their mock exams, the pre-mocks, and the year 10s from their common assessments to help them move forward. I have provided on this presentation as well some further slides on suggested work or revision texts that they can use. Again, please be mindful if your child is in year 11, they do not need the poetry revision guides, the cluster poetry. However, there is a range there for you. But again, please get in touch with us if you'd like further information or help on that.
Thank you very much, Miss Begum. We will now move to Miss Williams, who will be presenting for the Science Department.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Stacey Williams here, the Director of Science. I think one of the first things that I would like to talk to is just some of this sort of restructuring we've done this year in terms of science, in terms of our teaching and the amount of classes being taught at any one given time. So one of the things that we've ensured for both year 10 and year 11 students is that they're taught by 3 individual teachers. This is just a really good contingency plan in terms of the current COVID climate to ensure that teacher absence doesn't affect any classes disproportionately. If for any unfortunate reason a member of staff did happen to be off, is that there would be a remaining teacher to be able to teach those classes, and there'd also be teachers who are actually familiar with those students to pick up those classes so that we can keep it internal inside the department. We've also decided this year that we're going to teach units in parallel, meaning that all the biology students will be being taught the same biology unit, same with chemistry, and the same with physics, so that we've got easy access to resources to support any potential absence in the department. Also this year, what we have got is a real flexibility around timetabling. We have a lot of our classes, year 10 and 11, being taught at the same time. That means in terms of being able to constantly monitor students' attainment and students' progression throughout the course, we can move students accordingly. Okay, so changes to the science curriculum in this COVID climate. So the major change and the only change that's happened with science is in year 11, is that year 11 students are no longer required to do the actual required practicals. Now, I think I need to make that quite clear. It's that they're not required to physically carry out the practicals. However, they will be assessed on their knowledge of the practicals. Year 10 at the moment, we still have to approach the curriculum as if they had done completed the practicals. Unfortunately, at the moment, because of COVID and bubbling, we don't actually teach year 10 students in specialised rooms. So we're very much approaching required practicals in the same ways that we are approaching required practicals with year 11. So they need to be taught. So we have to ensure that we're using demonstrations where possible. So the year 11s are taught in specialist rooms. Where it is possible, teachers are doing demonstrations. We have in the last couple of weeks had PPE returned back to school. So teachers are now being encouraged to complete all of the year 11 required practicals. And we have got some contingency built at the end of our year 11 curriculum to go back and revisit some of the year 10 required practicals they would have missed. In terms of where it's not possible to actually physically carry out the practicals, we have been using the Mulberry School practical tutorials. Now, these are based on AQA, the exam board that we follow at the John Roan, and they use equipment that we've typically found in most school labs. We use these in replace of demonstrations, particularly with year 10, where we can't do that. And teachers are encouraged to pause these videos and talk about limitations, talk about the strengths of experimental design, pretty much as we would do if we were conducting the practical if the students were in school. Now, this is just an example of how we frame that lesson. So it's really important where students get the marks from in this, in the working scientifically aspect of the curriculum, is being able to understand each step of the practical. Why are we carrying out this in a particular way? And we get the students to complete that sheet. We also follow that up with exam style questions based on that particular practical to make sure that we are confident that once that tutorial has been watched or the demonstration is being given, that students are very, very clear on how they need to apply that practical knowledge to application questions. The reason why I showed you those videos also, these videos, the links to the Mulberry School videos are actually found on YouTube. Later on in this presentation, I will be presenting you a year 11 timetable that I've created for year 11 students. And these actual required practicals are hyperlinked to the specific units. So as part of your child's independent study, they can also review these practicals at, in their own time. I think that one of the good things about these required practicals as well, and how Mulberry have actually done them, is that they have done them created them in light of students not being able to physically do those practicals. So they ask the appropriate questions. They ask students to pay particular attentions, particular steps, pieces of equipment, etc. The next thing that I think is a really big point for us is the tiering. Obviously, science is in tier. We have foundation and we have the higher tier. The premise around tiering and how we always decide on tiering is probably no different to how we would do it, whether it was in the time of COVID or whether it wasn't in the time of COVID. For the higher tier papers, the students are graded on a 5 to 9 level. The lowest level they can achieve on the higher tier paper is a level 5. In the department, we always make sure that students who we do enter for the higher tier paper are students who can demonstrate that they can confidently and comfortably achieve a grade 5, but also who are capable of getting a grade 6. And that's where we would work, and that's where I'd expect my teachers to work. It's really important that as parents and as students who are listening, that you understand that if you do not achieve the level 5, you will not achieve a grade at all on the higher tier paper. We do at this particular time have to take into consideration that we have had a disruption to learning, and that our review process of tier entry is going to perhaps be slightly different to how we've approached it in previous years. One of the things we will be looking at is, as you're aware, we've got our pre-mock coming up. It's next week for year 11. We've also got their data from last year, so pre-COVID. So we will be looking at that data. We will be looking at their achievements on their pre-mock exam. So it's on B7 and C9. So these were the 2 units that they completed during the lockdown. We've made a conscious decision this particular term not to assess them on the year 10 content, so the content that they would have been taught prior to lockdown. We are going to, at the moment in lessons, we are making sure that we are doing interleaving to review the learning that took place before lockdown, but their mock, their paper 1 mock in November will be on that content that was taught prior to lockdown. Okay, so what are we doing to prepare the year 11s for the paper 1 mocks? As well as having to continue with the curriculum and ensure that we are moving forward with the year 2 curriculum of the GCSE spec, we're going to be reviewing paper 1 through homeworks this term. On Show My Homework to all of year 11s, students have been given access to revision materials, which are in the form of PowerPoints, which are in the form of tutorials, with past paper questions linked to those specific topics for students to do as part of their own independent learning. It's really important at this time that, as parents and as students, that you understand, as much as we've got to keep moving forward with the curriculum that's currently being taught, we've still got to find time, and we've still got to structure time and support you in being able to constantly review everything from last academic year, remembering that all that content has got to be pulled forward come your exam, if there is an exam series in May 2021. We're also going to be using Seneca Plus to put exam questions, review work up on an online platform. Students in year 11 have all been sent a link to this. I've actually set up a page on Seneca which says year 11 revision. I can monitor and I can see which students have logged in. I can see the duration of time that students have spent on tasks. I can also review the accuracy. That accuracy gives me a picture of where there might be some potential gaps in the year group, where I can instruct the team that we need to sort of go back and review that and build in some more review lessons. It's really important that students do log into Seneca. I will be reviewing and updating the resources each week, following a course map of all paper 1 and year 10 content. At this point, if for whatever reason your son or daughter cannot log into Seneca, can you please ensure that they let their science teacher know as soon as possible, please, so that we can sort out their login. Pre-seen mocks. So again, on Show My Homework, as part of the revision resources, I've put a selection of pre-seen mocks there for students to work through. They're mock exams where students get the questions and they also get the answers with things like command words and keywords highlighted, so that they can see where the examiners would actually award them marks. What we will then do then in lesson times, we will pull out some of the common questions. So the common questions are general questions in science that, irrespective of the tier, you are always going to be assessed on. And in a lesson, we can do a walking, talking mock style lesson, which will take about 15 minutes, where students can access some of these questions. We can do lots of fluency quizzes to access knowledge gaps. Again, some quizzes can be found on Show My Homework, but we will be using these as part of our review points within lesson. And over this holiday half term, I've created a structured revision timetable for year 11 and for year 10, which is going to use the Oak National Academy review lessons. So they've come up with actual review lessons. So based on the premise that you've been in school, you've actually been taught that topic, and then you've got an actual review lesson to go through. Okay, we can go through this. So I've covered quite a bit of that, so we're going to move on to the next slide. You'll have that slide for you. So here, these are just some of the things that we put in place and some of the things, the resources that you as parents and students can be accessing. I think one of the biggest things at the moment is the revision guide. Please, 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 where possible, try and get the revision guide. They are available to buy through Parent Pay, both for higher and foundation tier. You can get them from most bookstores, but they are slightly subsidised if you buy them through the school. It's a really, really useful tool. For some students who already have them, already have the revision guides, please can you encourage them to bring them to the lessons. They're fantastic to use at home, but as teachers, we can support your son or daughter in how to use them effectively to revise. The Oak National Academy review lessons we're going to be using as part of that structure, and also YouTube. Like I showed you before, there's fantastic tutorials, particularly based on required practicals, that can be accessed. Okay, go through. Okay. Knowledge organisers. So for both year 10 and 11, every single unit and subunit within science has now been broken down into these knowledge organisers, where they've got some of that key information. So pretty much like what Miss Sumner was saying before about what are the key things that that students really need to know for a given topic, that's been done. Next slide. On the back of that, there are some questions that pertain to some of that information that was on the front of that particular worksheet. These are really, really useful. These are useful for independent study. They are on Show My Homework. You can support your child, like when we have actually completed our pre-mock, and certainly when we've done paper 1, the paper 1 mock, and you get your question level analysis, which will actually really hone in on the areas that students need to focus on. You can quickly use these knowledge organisers, and this can be a 20 to 30-minute quick exercise just to review some of the key points in some of the key topics. Okay. So this is the timetable that is going to be sent out to all year 11 students. It's an electronic revision timetable. What's in blue, the topics, there's just some examples there, are actually hyperlinks. Now, when you click onto these, the hyperlink will bring you straight to different past exam questions. And those exam questions are generally timed. So every time you click into one, there'll be enough exam style questions to support that topic for about an hour's work. And that's what you need to be doing, pretty similar to English, at least an hour a day. In the top right-hand corner, for me, left, probably inverted for you, then there's the answers. So again, the students can click on that hyperlink and it will give you the answers to that particular question. Each week, I will send out a new timetable to all of Year 11s with the suggested units of study and practice. It's really important, I think, that as a parent, you support us in science with ensuring that students are doing that. I know in terms of other subject commitments that maybe an hour might be a bit too much all the time, every day. But even if they do 20 minutes to half an hour, it would be extremely beneficial. What this also means is that I can, as Director of Science, I can do some sort of quick pop little quizzes or tests to see where students are, to see which students are actually accessing this particular revision timetable. And yes, as a parent, I think this is really useful because you can keep this as well. You can use this. You can see what questions need to be done and you can see the suggested route through. Okay, so I'm just going to remind you again of some of the platforms that we are using. You can email if there's any concerns or any questions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I hope you found that useful. And like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't able to show you where the hyperlink would take you, but I can assure you we've tried it many times. They do work. Some of the students have already trialed them for me, so you'll be able to use those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams, and we will get this the science pathway sent out with all those hyperlinks to you as parents to use as well. Okay, it's time for Mr. Freeman, the head of maths.
Hello, everybody. Good to have you with us this evening. So I am Mr. Appiah, head of maths. And just to mention that for maths, we are giving 3 various provisions. First of all is the core, the maths itself for every student in the school, every year 11s, and certainly for every year 10s as well when they are in year 11. Now, there are some students we've got 2 top sets. The highest ability groups are going to be having an additional qualification, which is AQA Further Maths. Now, that is really good if they are going to be doing especially A-level maths and further maths in the future. But we know too that it's important to differentiate down for our students who find the maths itself a bit more difficult so that they can get an alternative qualification, namely the functional maths qualification. Now, so as you would appreciate, the qualifications have changed to numbers, but it's not just that. We've got a foundation and the higher. And now the higher is between grade 9 and 4, which means that to put students in for higher, we need to measure their ability, and not just that, their competency with the mathematics to think and logically and mathematically as well. Having said that, we know that some students always want to do higher because the higher means something else to them. Well, we'll come back to that, what determines who sits higher and who sits foundation. It is important to mention that unlike in those days, we don't have coursework anymore. We do only 100% examination, 3 sittings, I should say. The first paper is an hour and a half, so is the second and the third. The first paper is a non-calculator paper, and I must say that it is the weakest link amongst every school, every cohort, every class, because their arithmetic is usually not as strong as it should be. So what has changed? Well, primarily what has changed in terms of the new specification compared with the old is the volume of it, the amount of work they need to do, and the level of difficulty as well. Now, unlike the other subjects, whereby because of COVID, they've got some aspect of their content reduced. For marks, we haven't got that privilege. So students have to do, those in year 11 have to do 100% of the content, and they will be assessed in summer as well. How are we meeting the challenge then if the volume has increased and the intensity and also the difficulty has increased? Well, the number one focus is not intervention, but first quality teaching in the classroom. We are thankfully we have got every class has got a qualified maths teacher in front of them. So that is how privileged year 10s and year 11s are. And we are delivering very targeted intervention both in the lesson and out of the lesson as well. In every lesson, especially in year 11, every lesson, every teacher plans for exam questions embedded in their lessons. Now that is for two reasons. The first one is to give the students exposure to exam questions. But secondly, to show the mark scheme in the lesson so that they will be able to know what examiners look for in summer when they see the exams. What skill do they need to demonstrate to the examiner to get full marks, or at least 75% of marks on each question? We do a lot of low stakes testing, and that more of that will be happening, especially for year 11, after our pre-mock that Mr. Thomas did speak about. These low stakes testing are not to be taken lightly. It is really important that your children take them seriously, because one, we use it to create a picture, to build a picture of the students' ability and also the journey that they would have made. So that in case of anything should happen, that they are not sitting their exam as we experienced this year, we have got a full picture to make judgment that will be a true reflection of their ability and also their effort as well. The last one on that bullet point is the most important. If any student would achieve well, it is important that they become independent learner. And to do that, we've got a fantastic platform, Hegarty Maths. If they buy into it, every aspect of the content is on there. It takes them through a short 8-minute video, and they can practice with it with a few quizzes, and that is all that it requires. And I must say that that is our platform too for homework. And so it is important that if your child has not been engaging as well and as much as they should, please support them, please encourage them to make that website one of their most important websites they visit every week, if they can, every day. Now, what will students do? So we are doing our part, intervention in class, quality teaching. Well, in 3 words, and yet in 1 word, they just have to practice, practice, and practice. If they do the homework by practicing, if they do their classwork by practicing and engaging well in their lessons, and also Maths Genie has got some fantastic resources of all past questions. If they engage with these resources, then certainly they are going to do well. That is proven to be working in every school across the country. I do like academic research that informs what we do in the classroom, and this research came out with this expression that what parents do with their children at home through the age range, that is from primary all the way to post-system and perhaps to university as well, is much more significant than any other thing that teachers can do in the classroom. Now, how important it is then that parents have a role to play in how well their children, 1, engage, and 2, progress and attain what they deserve. So as parents, we do value so much what you do to support us in the classroom. But as I've mentioned, these resources are all there. The children need to take advantage of them and make the most of it. That will mean that not necessarily having a go at them, but urging them and supporting them as much as possible to really, at times they need a nudge sometimes to keep going and to engage with it. We know that maths is not the most popular amongst every student, but it is a necessary evil, because if they don't go through it, then it hampers their progress, and there are so many other things that they cannot do when they are 16 plus. So, how can you help us to meet the challenge? Please, Hegarty, Please, Hegeti, I just cannot emphasize it out. It is too important not to mention it. Now, every maths teacher says homework every week. We send them 2 clips. And the 2 clips, the videos themselves last for just about 16 minutes together, and then they practice for the rest of it. If they do this and submit their homework, and I tell students, don't do my homework because you don't want 1 hour detention. Do my homework because it is the most important thing you need to do on top of what you experience in classroom. Because that 300 minutes will not be enough for them to achieve what they need to achieve. So please encourage them. And this year for year 11s in particular, we have given them some revision booklets. Please encourage them to buy into those as well as Hegeti, and that will lead to their success. Now, as I mentioned, we've got 3 papers. 1 paper is non-calculator, but 2 papers are calculator papers. So I'm sure that it goes without saying that having a scientific calculator now to practice with them and get used to them is so important. The exams will not be invigilated by math specialists. They may not know how to point them to which button to press. It will be too late in the exam when they have borrowed somebody's calculator or have just bought one from Tesco's or W. Smith. It wouldn't be useful to them. So please check with your child. If they haven't got a scientific calculator, please invest in one for them, because it means more than 66% of the content that they need to cover. It is really, really important. And geometry set as well is really important. If your child hasn't got one and doesn't practice with them, again, it becomes wobbly in the exam when students don't know how to measure and how to do some construction. So please let them invest in that as well. Now, in our experience last year, so many students said, well, but I did not revise for the mock because it was only for practice. I was going to revise for the summer exams. Well, sadly, summer did not come. We don't want that to happen again. Not for year 11s, not for year 10s. But if now they take it seriously in every assessment, they take it seriously and build a routine of engaging with Hegeti Maths and engaging with their lessons and various homework platforms, then certainly they wouldn't need to cram a lot in leading up to the exam. So that is what we want. Maths is a skill that you build over time. You cannot just tuck in and within a week get mastery over it. So we really want them to have a habit of engaging with the subject. Tier of entry, I know that is a difficult one because parents have got questions about it, but I can assure you for maths, we will do what is professionally the best for your child. If a child has to sit higher, that is because from the data we have, the child deserves and can sit the higher paper. If a child has to sit foundation, then you can be assured that, again, it is the best decision we are making professionally for your child. Because if the higher does not go well, it goes straight to grade U. And no parent, no teacher, no student would want that. So be assured that we will do what is best for you and for your child. So when it comes to the decision, which in the case of year 11s is going to be based on the data we have, our knowledge of the students, the work they have done on Hegeti Maths, and the grade they get in this pre-mock. A lot has gone into that decision. And so when we make that decision, we would want you to support us. But at the same time, if you have any questions or queries, please let us know, and we will be here to work with you for the best of the children. The low stakes assessments, I mentioned it, they should take them really seriously because, again, as I mentioned, they form part of the data that we gather about them and their progress as well. If you have any queries, please feel free to see their class teacher, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions, especially around tiering. But be assured that we take into consideration not just ability, but confidence and resilience to face the higher paper before we make these decisions. Whatever we do will be for the best of the children. And so please be assured of that. Thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Afia. Thank you. I'd like to just reiterate something that Mr. Appy said in regards to mock exams. I kept on saying last year to my year 11 street, all the mock exams, they're the real deal. Not as if I was some sort of, you know, mind reader for the future or anything, and it just so happened that that was how it came out to be. So I do want to reiterate that. I know we use the word pre-mocks and mocks, and we've used those words quite a lot this evening, but the way I see it, if your child prepares for those exams as if they're the real exams, the more they prepare now, the less they have to prepare in May, June time, when those exams come around, hopefully, because they would have had that preparation. It's like going back and revisiting something. The more you revisit it, the more you already know, then the less you have to revisit at each term. The non-core subjects, so all the other subjects barring English, Maths and Science, they will be uploaded onto the school website tomorrow morning. They're already there, but they don't go live until tomorrow, as well as this presentation will also be uploaded onto the school website tomorrow, with the individual PowerPoints, particularly the science one, because of the hyperlinks that are embedded. They will be sent out to you as parents as well. I'd like to pass over to Miss Okoko now, in case we have any questions from parents that we would like to answer. I think Miss Smith has her hand up, Mr. Okoko.
Can't resist getting involved. I'm very sorry, Mr. Thomas. It's been incredibly informative, and I think the reason I can absolutely say that is we actually haven't had an enormous number of questions, because I think staff have really answered them as they've gone along. We had a question around how the targets were set, but I can see from the chat that Mr. Rogers has answered that pretty comprehensively, so I would hope that we have covered that. For parents to know, there's a really detailed answer about target setting in the chat, so if people want to have a look at that. If people have still got further questions, I think Mr. Rogers would be more than happy to answer them on an individual level. I can see him nodding in the background, so yes, that would be fine. Mr. Thomas, there's been a question around tutoring, and I think that's quite an important one, because the press over the summer in particular talked a lot about catch-up funding and how schools were going to be given resources to support youngsters who maybe have missed content during lockdown. And your role in particular this year is around raising standards and closing those gaps off. And we talk about gaps always, but I think in particular the lockdown induced gaps. So I wonder whether either you or Miss Sumner are able to talk about how we're going to support youngsters, I think particularly in the core subjects, but possibly in some of their options as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Thank you. We have made a significant number of interventions already. I believe 50 students were identified in year 10 and have received tutoring via English, Maths and Science throughout the summer. That comes to an end next week for those 15. I've already spoken to Miss Williams, Mr. Appiah and Miss Begum. After the pre-mocks, we're going to be identifying several students. We haven't as yet put a number on it, because we want to get as many as are requiring that support across English, Maths and Science individually, to be receiving further tutoring again on a one-to-one basis. We're also bringing in a 3-to-1 basis as part of the national tutoring program. So rest assured, a lot of interventions are already going to be taking place, which will kick in the last week in October. We'll have all the names and stuff by then. That's half term, and then the 1st of November are when all the tutoring programs kick in. Mr. Rogers and I had a very interesting discussion with the chief executive leader of the managed tutoring. It was one of the programs that we're going to use, and although we're going to focus heavily on maths for them, they also are going to offer us some tutoring for what are called the foundation subjects, so the non-core subjects as well. So there will be support put in place for those students. once we have identified them, and we're going to be doing a lot of the identification from the pre-mock exams, trying to make sure that those students are targeted as best as possible for support.
And it's worth saying also, isn't it, that Miss Williams and I have been looking at some particular science support that we might be able to offer. And today I got notification that we're going to have an English qualified academic mentor working with us after half term for the rest of the year. So we'll be able to really put in some really targeted interventions. And the brief of that person is to work with at least 50 students over the whole year. So it's really terrific resources that we're getting to support our students, because everyone knows that however hard someone worked during lockdown, there is a loss in terms of that interaction and that learning experience. So another question has been around a parent evening. Now, all the way through lockdown, we were asked if we were going to have parent evenings. So I'm not surprised that now we're open that those questions are going on. I would love to have all of our parents in the hall and get the opportunity to talk to all of them. And I know the parents would really like that. I think we're going to really need to work somewhere more around a Teams event. And I know other schools have really developed ones where you get your 5-minute slot and then you are cut off and you move to your next teacher. But Mr. Thomas, Miss Sumner, if we can further on in the year, we will be looking at a possible event, won't we? You're on mute, but I can see you nodding.
Yes, Miss Sumner just did answer your question.
Yes.
Okay, I missed it completely. All right. There's been a question here, last minute one that I just saw pop in, was around grades for sixth form progression. I think that's probably a good last question for us tonight, actually, which is about, so what is after this? And we're absolutely going to be doing a Year 11 options evening coming up, with more information will be given to you. But on the whole, if a young person wants to do A-levels, then the package we're looking at is that they have got at least 5 good passes at GCSE. That's grade 5 and above. But what they are also going to need is grade 6s in a number of subjects, depending on what A-level it is they're looking at doing. Now, the information that we use this year for our Year 12 admission is on our sixth form website. So if you have a look at that, you will see what we asked for this year. I think it's unlikely to change significantly one year to the next. But what we are saying very firmly is that a student to achieve at A-level is going to need to have some very strong GCSE grades. Now, we don't just offer A-level in our sixth form, we also offer BTECs, and the BTEC entry criteria are slightly lower. So again, it's worth going on our website to see what it is that we're saying about BTEC entry. It again depends on the BTEC that you're doing as to what you need. And then if someone is going entirely down the arts route, then actually we're going to be interested in obviously a good set of GCSEs in order to access the A-level courses. But again, a portfolio is a big selling point. So there's skills that they have developed over time to show that they have got the commitment and the flair to succeed. Now, I think that our A-level and our BTEC requirements are probably on a level with other institutions. So I don't think that they are particularly low or particularly high. What you will find is if you go to look at a very, very selective sixth form, then they might well be asking for 7s, 8s and 9s in particular subjects. But what we would rather have is youngsters who have got the right grounding for A-level courses and the right grounding for level 3 BTEC courses. But we're not going to limit it so much that we have a very narrow group. We quite like that broader group of youngsters, and we often see really great value added in the sixth form, because by then people are doing subjects that they really have a passion for. Mr. Thomas, I'm just going to pass back to you to finish off the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. I'd just like to finish up by saying thank you very much to Ms. Sumner, Ms. Williams and Mr. Rapier for their time this evening. Thank you very much to all the parents and students who've partaken in it. And of course, Thank you very much to Miss Begum, as well as Mr. Colcott in the background, who's obviously supported Mr. Rogers as well for assisting in putting the bits and pieces together. So do get in touch with the head of department if you have any specific subject related questions. Ms. Sumner's here to also support myself, Mr. Rogers. We're here to support, and if there are any issues, please let us know so we're able to address those issues as soon as possible, because that's what our job is. We want the best for your child, be they in year 10, year 11, even year 7, you know, so we want the best for your child at all times. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Bye-bye.